Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Oh, it's so obvious that the left is trying so hard to get a win here, you know? They want that thing, that story, that's gonna shut down the Trump administration just like the Biden Afghanistan withdrawal sent Joe Biden's approval into the gutter for him never to return. It's obvious they're looking for their blunder, and I think they were hoping that this Zelensky situation would be that exact thing. But unfortunately for them, I don't think this strategy is going to pay off so well. No, even though the left thinks that this was the greatest gift ever given to them, and they're totally politicizing it, in the end, it seems as though the left isn't exactly having that good of a day. The Zelensky crash out was supposed to be their big moment to spin some grand narrative about Donald Trump being a Putin puppet once again, right? But instead, they are getting absolutely destroyed time after time after time as they attempt to fearmonger yet again, claiming Donald Trump's a Manchurian candidate working for the Kremlin. It's just not holding up to the facts and common sense analysis, and they're just getting fully embarrassed and exposed on their network shows. I want to show you guys exactly what I mean by that as the Trump administration, many of his key cabinet officials, take to the media to set the frickin' record straight. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so first off, we've got Marco Rubio. He's getting the headline spot here because, honestly, even though we've given him a whole lot of flack in the past, he really is a fantastic communicator. And I gotta say he's come a long way and he's doing some great work for the Trump administration. Just take a look at how he handled Caitlin Collins on CNN.
Heard from President Zelensky. He said he does not think that he owes President Trump an apology for what happened inside the Oval Office today. Do you feel otherwise?
I do. You guys only saw the end. You saw what happened today. You don't see all the things that led up to this. The president's been very clear. He campaigned on this. He thinks this war should have never started. Now here we are. He's trying to bring an end to this conflict. We've explained very clearly what our plan is here, which is we want to get the Russians to a negotiating table. We want to explore whether peace is possible. They understand this. They also understand that this agreement that was supposed to be signed today was supposed to be an agreement that binds America economically to Ukraine, which to me, as I've explained, and I think the president alluded to today, is a security guarantee in its own way, because we're involved. It's now us. It's our interests. And nonetheless, for the last 10 days, in every engagement we've had with the Ukrainians, there's been complications in getting that point across, including the public statements that President Zelensky has made. This agreement could have been signed 5 days ago, but they insisted on coming to Washington, and there was should have been a very clear understanding. Don't come here and create a scenario where you're going to start lecturing us about how diplomacy isn't going to work. President Zelensky took it in that direction, and it ended in a predictable outcome as a result. That wasn't supposed to be this way, but that's the path he chose, and I think, frankly, sends his country backwards in regards to achieving peace, which is what President Trump wants at the end of the day, is for this war to end. He's been as consistent as anyone can be about what his objective is here.
But what specifically do you want to see President Zelensky apologize for?
Apologize for turning this thing into the fiasco for him that it became. It went off the rails when he said, let me ask you a question to the vice president. What kind of diplomacy are you talking about? Thousands of people have been killed. Thousands. And he talks about all these horrible things that have happened to prisoners of war and children. All true, all bad. The way you bring it to an end is you get Russia to the table to talk. And he understands that attacking Putin, no matter how anyone may feel about him personally, forcing the president into a position where you're trying to goad him into attacking Putin, calling him names, maximalist demands about Russia having to pay for the reconstruction, all the sorts of things that you talk about in a negotiation. Well, when you start talking about that aggressively, you're not going to get people to the table. And that active, open undermining of efforts to bring about peace is deeply frustrating for everyone who's been involved in communications with them leading up to today. And I think we should apologize for wasting our time for a meeting that was going to end the way it did.
You yourself have said previously that Putin cannot be trusted in negotiations. That was the point that President Zelensky was ultimately making during that conversation, is that there cannot be an agreement without security guarantees, because he was talking about all the ceasefire agreements before, or agreements that Putin has just blown past.
Well, I was there yesterday when the president said in front of the media that our approach is going to be trust but verify. President Trump's made deals his entire life. He's not going to get suckered into some deal that's not a real deal. We all understand this. And so the goal here is to get to a place we have to explore whether peace is possible. I've said this repeatedly. I don't know. I think it is. based on what they've said so far, but we have to explore that. How else is this war going to end?
Oh, little Marco, who remembers that one? Oh, how far you've come from getting obliterated in the 2015 primaries alongside Jeb Bush to now being an absolute frickin' stud. I mean, I'm actually proud of the guy, and I think there's good reason to be proud of him. He just completely dismantled the leftist spin on this absolute disaster from Zelensky. It's not Trump's fault. It's not JD Vance's fault. No, it's 100% on Zelensky. And Rubio hit the nail on the head because what Zelensky pulled here was pathetic. He had multiple chances to take the deal, multiple opportunities to secure peace for his country, and he botched it every single time. And now finally, there's a moment here to negotiate peace, to put an end to this war, to save what's left of Ukraine, to save these young men from being sent to slaughter, and he messed it up again. It's unbelievable. And it shows you how Trump deranged and one-sided the American media is. And really, the lack of patriotism is what's so sickening. Even in a situation as obvious as this, it's always Donald Trump's fault. Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. He's the bad guy, right? He's got to be the freaking supervillain of every story. But it's not holding up.
It's a political divide here because it seems as if that Republicans are pretty happy what happened. Let's not make sure we don't have the revisionist history. Donald Trump was responding to a reporter's question asking about whether or not, Putin. Donald Trump responded to that. He said, next question, one more question. J.D. Vance then piggybacked off of what Donald Trump was saying, and he was talking about the importance of diplomacy. And what he specifically was saying is that negotiating with one side, which is what the United States and Europe has done this entire time, not inviting Putin to the negotiating table, J.D. Vance was talking about that's how Donald Trump views diplomacy. It was Zelensky then who then turned to J.D. Vance and said, J.D., not Vice President Vance, J.D., to ask him a question. There wasn't a reason for him to ask J.D. Vance anything. I thought that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance did exactly what they needed to do in that moment because he was surely disrespectful and he responded to it. I thought that they did exactly what they should have done. Bravo to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.
Common sense is cutting right frickin' through. Trump's got all the leverage in the world. And again, his top priority is not Ukraine's interest. The onus falls on Zelensky's shoulders. It was his job to come to America and successfully negotiate something beneficial for his people. And he failed at that. He's the one diplomatically dealing with Donald Trump. And he screwed up. He's pushing America further and further away by failing to deal and interact with the democratically elected president of the United States, the man who represents the people. And the left's trying to tell you that that's Donald Trump's fault. It's utterly ridiculous. America is literally trying to help Zelensky, and this guy had the nerve to act the way that he did. I mean, you can't make that stuff up. And now for the cherry on top to finish off this video. I know I said Marco Rubio was the headliner, but there's always one man in the Trump administration that always steals the show. He really is the cherry on top. It's Stephen Miller, who came out with some of the best points of the night.
There were many remarkable and disturbing things that Zelensky said. He repeatedly rejected President Trump's statement that we should pursue a ceasefire.
Right.
How could you reject a ceasefire? And he kept saying Europe's doing so much more than us. Well, then what do you need us for? If he's saying Europe's so great, then why are you coming and begging and pleading to us for money and protection and guarantees? President Trump is a peacemaker. He will fight for peace. He had peace for 4 years under his previous term. And today we saw what it's like to have a strong leader in the White House, and the whole world saw what it's like to have a strong leader for America.
Stephen Miller has a knack for lasering in on the most important elements, and he's done it again, pointing out how Zelensky was against a ceasefire. I mean, that's insane. Think about it for a second. Why isn't anybody in the media talking about that instead of just constantly going, Orange man bad, Orange man Putin? Oh, that's right, probably because it completely destroys their narrative. But again, think of it. Zelensky is recoiling at and rejecting the notion of a ceasefire. Yeah, let's not pretend as if we've ceded moral superiority here. I believe Donald Trump's on the right side, and I think most people can see that. I think a lot of people probably appreciate finally having a president who's challenging the, let's call it, foreign policy orthodoxy of the past, a president who's not so easily manipulated and played as a fool, and most importantly, a president who's fighting for peace and an end to conflict. And no amount of media spin, I think, will change that perception. Especially not these days as the mainstream media is totally collapsing. Nobody even watches them anymore, and most of the conversation is happening online on X. Anyways, that's pretty much it. Just thought I'd amplify the Trump administration's response just to provide a little bit of balance because the media is going on in hyper propaganda mode. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.